In 2013, I was invited to be writer-in-residence in Mayo. And while I knew next to nothing about the county, while driving around various schools and community groups, I fell madly in love with the place. I was transfixed by the landscape. There's something transformative about this county. Mayo encourages one to leave the mainstream behind and open oneself to new experiences. Or at least, that's how it was for me. Mayo is the third largest county in Ireland. It has some of Ireland's most rugged and scenic beauty, from the desolation of its blanket bogs to its 10 pristine blue flagged beaches, a true highlight of the wild Atlantic way. There are also rivers and lakes, an irresistible lure for anglers. Of course, Mayo is rich in history. There's the world's most extensive Stone Age site at the Quai des Fields, where the cattle byres and field walls of our Neolithic ancestors still exist. There are the sacred abbeys of Cong and Ballintubber, wonderful examples of medieval ecclesiastical architecture. And there's here at the Museum of Country Life near Castlebar, where the old ways of our traditional rural life are being preserved. A prism into the world we're leaving behind us. The county is brimming year-round with festivals and events, and nearly every town has its showpiece gathering, attracting tourists and returning emigrants in equal measure. In terms of activity and adventure, Mayo is unrivaled. The Irish Times recently named Erris the best place to go wild in Ireland, and it is wild. Here at the Ballycroy National Park, one of the last true wilderness areas in Ireland, there's a sense of being at the edge of existence. But then, of course, there's also the high adrenaline water sports. There's kayaking, surfboarding, coast-steering, not to mention galloping across the beach, golfing, fishing, and some phenomenal walking trails. Mayo is literally a place that leaves you breathless. But the pinnacle of activity tourism has got to be the Great Western Greenway. This glorious 42 kilometres of cycle track and walking trail from Westport to Achill has made the whole of Ireland sit up and take note of what can be done with a bit of vision and buy-in from the local community. Of course, there's also time to take stock and reflect. Thousands of pilgrims flock to the sacred sites of the totemic Croagh Patrick and the newly refurbished Basilica at Knock Shrine. One of the great things about Ireland in recent years is how we've fallen in love with food again. Mayo now has some truly inspirational artisan produce, and restaurants like Rua here in Castlebar are really beginning to celebrate locally produced produce. Entertainment comes in all shapes and sizes, from sampling a craft beer and some trad in a local pub to catching some of the big-name acts at the Royal Theatre. If you want to go even further west, then the Mayo Islands of Inishturk, Clare Island and Achill offer something truly potent, a complete break from the mainland. Mayo, a county on the far western edge of Europe, a place teeming with history, linking our pagan past with a more progressive future. It's a place of blanket bogs, Bronze Age forts and Caribbean-like beaches, such as this one, Keene Bay in Achill. Mayo helps us remember the desolation of our past, but also re-engage with our own land. For the tourist, it's no hop-on, hop-off bus tour. It's a place to really commit to engage in. And if you do, you will not be disappointed.
Thank you, Mancon, for that wonderful tour of Mayo. Now, I'm delighted to be joined by stakeholders in the tourism industry in Mayo. We have Minister for State for Tourism, Transport and Sport, Michael Ring, who has special responsibility for tourism and sport. We have Biddy Hughes from Westport House and Niall Rochford, who's General Manager for Ashford Castle. So you're all very welcome here tonight to talk about tourism in Mayo. Now, Minister Ring, I'm going to come to you first because your role as Minister for Tourism and Sport brings you all around the world and all around the country. So from all of your travels, how would Mayo rate nationally?
Well, nationally, Mayo is doing very well. Last year we had over 432,000 visitors into Mayo. And, you know, when you take it, 7.7 million people came into the country last year. That's a big percentage come into Mayo. But we have a tremendous product in the county. I mean, the Wild Atlantic Way, I mean, this has just taken off. It's taken off all over the world. And certainly, you know, again, for the first quarter of this year, we have had a 15% increase. And I mean, that is just brilliant. There's no doubt about it. We're heading this year for the best year ever. Now, not just in the last 3 or 4 years, but the best year ever for tourism. And Mayo is going to benefit from that. We have 4,500 people employed in tourism in this county. 4,500 people. If that was a multinational company coming into this county, everyone would be out with the bands and the parades. But these are people that are working in every corner of this county. And I believe we can create many, many more jobs. Just take the Greenway. I mean, the amount of jobs that has been created there and the amount of jobs that has been maintained. Take every hotel, bed and breakfast, self-catering. They're all employing people within the county. And that's the one thing about the tourism product. And we have a good product. And we're now beginning to discover with the Wild Atlantic Way places that people were never there before. Just take Erris. I think it's one of the greatest gyms that we have. And I believe over the next number of years, it's just ready and ripe now to develop, along with the product we have in Westport, we have in Ballina, we have all over this county. In every corner of this county, we have something to offer for tourism and for tourists.
Well, taking what you've just said there, Minister, you've highlighted Westport and you've highlighted the Greenway and the Wild Atlantic Way. And so, Biddy, early in your role in Westport House, have you seen a change in the last couple of years in Westport and in what Westport House has to offer then to all of these new tourists that are coming to Mayo?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, Westport has done, as the Minister said, very well on the domestic and the Irish market in the last 10 to 15 years, and it's been recognised very much, you know, like awards like the best place to live for Westport, the best place to go wild in Erris, the best tourism town in Ireland for Westport again this year. It's been recognised on the domestic level very much so, which is great. Our challenge now is to really work towards bringing in the international visitors, and the Wild Atlantic Way is going to be a phenomenal. So far, I mean, it's only really been out there for a year and a half, really, and the response has been fantastic. And I mean, it's a far cry from 1960 when Westport House was opened by Jeremy and Jennifer Altamont. You know, Westport and Mayo was a very depressed area. You know, really there was no tourism in the region at all, and they were very pioneering in creating opening up the beautiful historic house, creating the Pirate Adventure Park, opening a caravan and camping park in the 70s.
I used to go myself and my family, my 5 brothers, we all go.
Absolutely, it was my playground as a child.
The Pink Rabbit in Westport House, yeah.
Pinky Rabbit, absolutely. And now it's been taken over by the 2 eldest daughters of Jeremy and Jennifer, Sheila and Karen, are running the business today, and they've brought it on in leaps and bounds in recent years. I mean, back in 1960, the very first year it opened, there were 2,600 visitors to the house. If you jump forward a few years, in 2009 we had 89,000 visitors paying visitors to Westport House. But in the last 5 years that's grown so much. By 2014 we've just welcomed 140,000 people.
Fantastic.
So the growth is fantastic. It's as a result of adding new product.
And it's growing.
Continuing to develop the place, being innovative and working with our local partners. I mean, we work very closely with Fáilte Ireland, Tourism Ireland, Mayo County Council and the local businesses in the town to really help bring it, get the word out there and keep it out there.
Thank you, Biddy. So we see and we're hearing that, you know, tourism is growing, Niall, and you've made a lot of changes, a lot of renovations to Ashford Castle of late, and it's one of the best-known castles, I suppose, in the West. Tell us about what you've done recently with Ashford Castle.
Yeah, well, Ashford has always been very, very special, but in the last couple of years, what has happened over there has been just quite remarkable. We're very lucky that the Tolman family of Red Carnation Hotels purchased the castle in 2013, and since then, just an amazing restoration and enhancement project has taken place, and that's what it is. It's not a refurbishment or a renovation, it's a restoration and enhancement of this great estate that we have in Mayo. So, you know, from the fabric of the building where all the roofs have been stripped back, the walls have been repointed, 820 windows replaced, and that's before we did anything. So the fabric of the building has now been taken care of for the next 3 generations. So it's fantastic. We've increased employment in Ashford as well, on the Ashford estate. Now 300 people employed on the Ashford estate, between the castle and the lodge at Ashford as well, which we purchased last January 12 months. So
and
very positive.
It's such a beautiful destination. I have families who've worked, or my family has worked in Ashford Castle for generations, and I love going there just to see the lake, if nothing else. It's just such a gorgeous building. Thank you very much to Minister Michael Ring, to Biddy Hughes, and to Niall Rochford for joining us here to talk about Mayo Tourism today.
Thank you.